our next speaker, I just want to get a quick wave and make sure he's out here. Perfect, thank you. Mr. Stephen Sweeney is a native of Ireland. He attended the University of Birmingham for professional golf studies. He turned professional at 18 and was an assistant professional at Royal County Down Golf Club, during which time he completed his bachelor's degree and set out to become an elite golf instructor. He spent 3 years in Dubai at the Academy by Troon Golf, 3 years at St. Andrews, Links Golf Academy, and 8 years as a head golf professional and director of instruction at one of Germany's premier clubs, which unfortunately I cannot pronounce, I'm sorry. While there, he also helped to build one of Europe's most high-tech putting labs. Considered to be a putting biomechanics expert, he is a Quintic Ball Roll certified instructor, a Dr. Paul Hurian certified putting instructor. He also uses technology such as the SAM, TrackMan, and V1 Golf. He currently spends 30 plus weeks traveling the tour, or with the tour, and helps players such as Carlos Ortiz, Sergio Garcia, Mito Pereira, Shane Lowry, Aaron Wise, and Joaquin Neiman. It's a pleasure to have you here, Mr. Stephen Sweeney.
Everyone hear me? Yeah? Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm absolutely honoured to be here. Little kid from Ireland, the West Coast in Donegal growing up. Never thought I'd find myself in sunny LA speaking to fellow golf professionals, so I'm absolutely honoured. I'd like to give a huge shout out and a round of applause to Mr. Jamie Mulligan. Thank you so much for inviting me here. Jamie just took me on a drive of the facility while Mark was speaking for a little bit, and I'm absolutely speechless, blown away by the whole place. So it's fantastic to be here. Just to give you a little bit of an extra background on who I am and what I do. Yeah, turned pro at 18, Royal County Down Golf Club, and had a phenomenal mentor there, Kevin Whitson, and all the way through to now living in Florida. I've been lucky to have some great mentors in the game through different coaches and different players as well. My journey definitely took a little bit of a change in 2010, I guess it was. I was teaching full swing on the European Tour. And at that time, all my players were getting a lot better on the putting green, and the ball striking stats weren't really improving very much. So one evening at the Irish Open, after a Wednesday pro-am, a few of my players were on the putting green, and we were having a putting competition, and I remember taking 500 euros off of my players putting against them. Pretty much from that point forward, I couldn't give away a swing lesson for free, and got boxed in as a putting instructor. So I thought, well, I better go and find someone that knows about this, and really study it a lot more than I am right now. So I reached out to Paul Hurian, who invented the Quintic Ball Roll, and Paul, for the last just over a decade or so, has been nothing short of a phenomenal mentor to me in the game. Helped me understand ball roll dynamics, club movement, body biomechanics, and really dive deep into that side of it. I see Jamie out there most weeks on the tour, and Mark and a lot of the other coaches that are here, Dave as well. And I guess I've been kind of a little bit labeled or boxed in as a very technical, technology-driven coach. So today, I actually wanted to take everybody through a little bit more of the basics of what I do week to week on a PGA Tour putting green. And especially today, for this segment, we're going to use absolutely no technology whatsoever. Putting is definitely, for me, a skill of the game where technology or science definitely combines with art. And we'll talk a little bit about numbers a little bit later on inside when we're using the well putt green. I teach in Florida in an indoor facility, and I think it's very important to understand when we're teaching exactly what part of putting are we working on. is it a stroke mechanical point of instruction, or are we actually working a little bit more on the art side, speed control, reading a putting green, deciding on a start line, getting into the right headspace of how to pull the trigger and hit a putt. Today, I really want to combine all those things together, and basically what you see on the putting green right now, I want everyone to be able to walk away from today's session and be able to give a putting lesson using the bare minimum on a putting green without having to buy a $20,000 camera or anything like that. Because I believe with the best players in the world, the things that we're going to run through today, they get better week by week, and there's also a high level of accountability. A lot of the time when I started out teaching, I would work endlessly in a lab, straight putt, straight putt, straight putt, and I'd have players go into a tournament, and I'm like, this guy's going to hold everything this week. They'd go to the tournament, they'd have a very average to poor putting week. They'd come back, we'd go in the lab, straight putt, straight putt, straight putt, couldn't see a fault. Biomechanics camera, turn it on, look at the body, start looking at 1/100th of a degree of movement or 100th of a mile per hour of acceleration in the putter head. There wasn't anything wrong. Same thing next week, average to per putting week. So I started to go back and I started to dive into what made me a great putter. How was I able to not really play a lot of golf, but be able to take on some of the best players on the European Tour and take money out of their pockets? How did I learn to putt growing up? And when I realized how to combine that with dialing in the science side, being able to measure a stroke, and then when we had good results, being able to measure a player and go back to that data point and always have a baseline. Once I found the correct combination of that is when I actually started having the most success as a coach. Something similar to what Mark said earlier a little bit when I was listening to his introduction. I'm one of probably very few coaches, I know Jamie as well does this a little bit. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'll work with some of the best players in the world. Thursday evening, Friday, Saturday, I'm on a plane going back to Jupiter, and I'll get back there and I won't see my wife until basically Sunday because I'm teaching regular golfers. And I actually think it's very, very important when you start working with high-level amateurs or professional golfers that you don't just get focused in on only seeing the same, for me, 8 to 15 strokes week in, week out. I think it's helped enormously since I moved to the States to be able to have a lot of college golfers coming in, especially for the first time actually. College golfers, CEOs, regular club golfers come in, take a lesson, and present me with a fresh problem. Really keeps me fresh and really keeps me dialed in. So actually having that combination, I know Mark spoke about this a lot earlier, having that combination of the tour player, the elite amateur, and your 10 handicap really keeps you very sharp from a teaching point of view. So I think the one thing that you're always going to need for that, certainly in my case, is a very forgiving and understanding wife. So I would like to thank her for everything she does. But I'm very excited to be here today, and I have a fantastic model / golfer. She actually looks very much like a model, so she's going to come out here and hit some putts for me. Fee, you want to give everyone a round of applause, please? Now, we just met about an hour ago, and what I want to do today is run through a typical session that we would do on a combination of a Tuesday and a Wednesday at a PGA Tour event. The regular event for me will be Monday and Tuesday morning, getting everybody through a little bit of the technical side of things, whether that be using a Capto system or a Quintic Ball Roll, even a blast motion, whatever that might be, video cameras. And as we get closer to the tournament days, the technology goes away and the drills and the performance-based training starts to be more present, and obviously then leading into Thursday morning for a warm-up for a player, which is very individual. What we're going to do is start on a straight putt, do a little bit of stroke analysis. We've had a little bit of a talk just earlier, talking about her general patterns, misses, what she thinks they are. Going to try and look into how to solve those, and then from there I've set up a couple of drills that we're going to do to incorporate good short putting fundamentals, some lag putting, speed putting, and then some green reading. By doing all these 3 drills, we're also going to have results. We're going to have measurable baselines where today being the first day that we're working together, we're actually going to have a baseline number of how many putts did you make out of 20, how many foot of putts did you leave yourself after a lag speed drill, how good was your green reading, how many attempts did it take to get that on the to get it correct. So everything that I do closer to the tournament days is definitely measured, and we do that week on week on week. So we know that if suddenly there's a drop off in performance, then we're not over here hitting straight putts or lag putts if we need to be working on short breaking putts, or vice versa. So as we go and set up here, we've got a well stroke putting mat on the ground, and basically all that is up to show us where a straight putt is going to be. We've already found the straight putt at the hole. We did this earlier before we came out just to save some time. So we'll always do some stroke mechanics on the straight putt to start off with. We've got very much, okay, we already did this, it's definitely straight. So we're locked in, and we know exactly that if we miss the hole or hit the tees, then it's a stroke problem. Now, whenever we talked a little bit earlier, you were saying that your misses tend to be to the right, is that correct?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit to the right. Okay. Now, we're going to cut this a little bit shorter today just so everybody can sort of get an idea of everything that we're doing, and also we have time to go inside. So I just want you to go ahead and hit 3 more putts. And again, this is all without video camera. It's all without technology. If anybody wants to start talking about alpha, beta, gamma torques or dispersion or displacement or anything like that, I'm happy to do it later. But today we're just going to do this right now for a general putting green drill and really have a little bit more of the art side of putting. So like we discussed earlier, the miss tends to be a little bit to the right, and a little bit of that compensation, I mean, it's a beautiful stroke. A little bit of the compensation then earlier was a couple of pulls. So something that I've worked a lot on with players in understanding their tendencies has been, how do they see straight? And I know it sounds a little silly, well, straight should be straight. Well, everyone sitting around here today is going to see straight from a slightly different position. And something we're going to look at on the well putt a little bit later is actually dialing in the correct setup position to really see straight. So for this part of the drill, very high tech, we have a couple of knitting needles and a string down the middle. We've created a straight putt, 10 feet. Every ball's 2 feet from each other. So I'm going to take this away, and once that's gone, I'm going to just get for you to come in here and set up to the first putt for me, please. So she's going to aim the putter at the address position and aim at the first ball here down the line, and basically it's treated like a straight putt. So whenever you're set up, that looks pretty straight to you? Okay. As I move away and show you the next ball, does that still look straight?
No, it looks right.
It looks to the right. Okay. So as I go further down the line and move away, the putt would look like it goes to the right.
Yeah, like I'm aiming way left. I'm aiming way left.
Okay. So it looks like the putt would draw or fade?
Draw.
It would draw. Okay, perfect. So I know everyone here is very familiar with the ball flight laws. To hit a draw, you're going to need a club face that points to the right to start the ball right at target and bring it back on target. So what I'd like you to do, if I grab your putter from you, I'd like you to set up, take your posture position, and I'd like you to set up in a position where you can see the balls totally straight. Now that may mean coming closer to the ball, tilting your neck a little bit more towards your right shoulder or your left shoulder, or moving the ball forward or back in your stance. But you'll find a position where you're seeing that line perfectly straight. Okay, so if we re-enter, we're aiming back at the first ball again. Looks good? Okay. Second ball?
Straighter, yeah.
Straighter. Third ball?
Better, yeah.
Yeah, pretty good? Okay, so now she's able to see straight. Little things, even as looking down the line of the putt. If we, can I touch your head just for a second?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if we tilt your neck and you look down the line that way, does that look more like a draw?
Yeah, big time.
Okay. And as we tilt your head and look at the putt that way, it should look straighter. Okay. Generally, from this setup position right now, we're going to put 2 tees in the ground at our feet, tee behind the ball, measure it, and then record that measurement for each player individually. So I know that when we see each other in a month or 6 months or a year, oh, let me look through my notes real quick. You're set up 9 inches from the tee of the ball to the line of your toe line. The ball's 4 inches from your left toe. Ball's 7 inches from your right toe. So her homework already is having a practice station set up with 3 tees measured out every day, hit straight putts to just work on seeing a straight line. That's the first thing that we're going to start with. So if we take that back over now to the setup position for the straight putt. That's all right. The first thing that we want to see is that she's able to get into that setup position again and see the first ball matching up with the hole. Is that better? Okay. Now taking that away, we're going to set up in that setup position and go ahead and stroke a few putts. Lovely. Very nice. Got to give her a round of applause. She's making everything here. Beautiful. Lovely stroke. Last one. 3 in a row and then we're done. We'll move on to the next part of the drill. So I think while she's finishing off the drill, it's very important to distinguish between, are we working on stroke mechanics? Do we need to work on stroke mechanics? I would say a tiny little bit of the practice needs to be this. About 10%, 15% max on a weekly basis of my players work on stroke mechanics versus skill development and speed, breaking putts, finishing drills, doing that sort of thing. Go on, have one more go at it. One last putt. Just making sure that that setup position's good, and then we'll move on to the next one. So we got our eyes a little bit more over the ball, seeing a little bit more straight. Last one. So now we've got, obviously, if this happens, the possibility that there's a little bit of mechanics that need to be changed to match the new eye position. She may have been holding the putter off a little bit more or aiming right and actually pulling the putt on line. So now we've got her aiming straight. She doesn't need to be releasing the club quite as much or closing the club face to get it on line because she's actually aiming in a better position. All right. We'll give you one last chance, then we'll move on to the breaking putts at this point. This is why this live is more fun than recorded for TV. There we go. All right, that one broke off a little bit on you. Okay, so again, that's what we're going to run through. Again, we're limited for time today, but on a normal event, we might have to stay a little bit longer at that skill, work on it, go back and forward a little bit more, and see that straight putt again, and then understand, okay, well, the putter now, as I say, is aimed square. We don't need to be pulling it on line, which she had been previously doing. Second drill that I want you to try out with some players, and this is a really good drill for college players, junior golfers especially. They love doing it. The tour pros tend to get a bit frustrated at this on a putting green. We've got 20 tees set up, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 feet. We've got a north, south, east, and a west wing of this putt. So it's called the hurricane drill, or if you've watched any of some of the stuff I've done with Odyssey, we've called it the Odyssey swirl drill, so for obvious reasons. Now, basically the idea of this is to record our performance from 4 to 8 feet. It's one of the key parameters on the PGA Tour behind having a successful week. We're going to do this in 2 different sections every week. We're going to do a 4 to an 8, and we're going to do 12 to 15. The goal of the drill is obviously to make every putt. If we make 15 putts, we're at 0 strokes gained on the drill. So 15 out of 20, the best in the world, are making 75%. So we're going to start with the drill. I want you to go ahead, hit the first putt. If you make the putt, we're going to tap down the tee. That's kind of the goal of the drill. Every time you have success, you get to tap down the tee and move on. You never hit the same putt twice. You're just actually going to work around the putt and actually have a result at the end of the putt, or at the end of the drill. I've seen guys take 7, 8 minutes to do this. I've seen guys take 30 minutes to do it. That's the most satisfying part, is when you get to tap down the tee. Again, this isn't anything high technology that we're out here working with. This is just simple. We're doing a drill, we're going to record the data, and then from there, we're actually going to keep that, and next week we're going to try and beat our best score. So every week you're keeping a score, trying to beat it the next week. There we go, 2 in a row. So before I move on to any further, does anyone have any questions that they want to ask at this point? You can keep going. The tees? Yeah, absolutely. So it's 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 feet. And there's 4 sides to the drill. So there's a north, a south, an east, and a west. Generally, what we'll start with is the first putt should be a straight uphill 4-footer. And then we go from there. So our 6 o'clock position all the way around. Now, the other thing as we're doing this drill, it will start to make it very obvious. If you do this drill 10, 20 times, if you really record the data properly, you're actually going to see where the deficiencies are, if any deficiencies, where they actually are in the player's performance. So you might find on the first leg of the drill that we're making 5 out of 5 every time for 20 times in a row. But when we get above the hole to the third part of the drill, that we're making on average 1 or 2 out of 5. So at that point, you're going to look at mechanics maybe on the left to right putts. You're going to look at green reading on the left to right putts, downhill. But also, something that we've really looked into a lot with Quintic is actually, where do you hit your approaches on the green? Where do you chip to? So just to give you a quick story, we had a player on the European Tour, Robert Jan Derksen, a Dutch guy. So he's going to his last 2 years of competitive play and hadn't really ever finished in the top, I think it was the top 50 in scrambling around the greens. So we looked at a lot of his putting stats, and obviously he wasn't very high up in the putting stats. So we went to a short game mental guru, and the guy said to him, he goes, what you need to do is you need to think about making every chip shot. and every bunker shot. Because you're not aggressive enough, you want to actually think about making them, not trying to get them up and down. So the next season, he plummeted from about 58th to 138th and around the green, up and downs. So if you look at most golf course designs, bunkers, misses generally come up short. He's more aggressive with his chips and his pitches and his bunker shots. And he starts leaving himself a lot more putts from the other side of the hole. So after about 35, 40 times doing these drills on the 4 to 8 foot and the 12 to 15 foot, we started noticing real deficiencies from above the hole. He was fantastic from below the hole, right to left, pretty good below the hole, left to right, and everything above the hole was just pretty terrible, to be honest with you. So we started asking him, okay, all right, can you chip it up and leave yourself an uphill putt? Obviously, I know for the most part you're trying to make it, but if you're going to err on the side of a low miss. The following 2 years, he led the scrambling on the European Tour in his final 2 years on tour. So just understanding where your strengths and your weaknesses are is a huge key component to putting better. And that had something to do with where he was hitting his chips too. Stroke mechanics were perfect. But statistically speaking, it's about 3 times easier to hole a putt from below the hole from 10 to 15 feet than it is to hole one from above the hole. And especially whenever we're looking at college golf tournaments, USAM, PGA Tour, LPGA Tour events, we're looking at green speeds similar to this with a hole set on a 2 to 3% slope. So whenever you're starting to look into strokes gain numbers, nice, there you go. Whenever you're starting to look into strokes gain numbers, you got to be really careful of approach to green. Now, one person who's, I think, been labeled as a poor putter in his career, and it's really not the case, has been Rory. Rory's obviously hit it so close so often, and whenever you've got a 7-iron in your hands from probably, in his world, 200 yards, you can't just hit it 6 feet below the hole all the time. You're going to have a lot of those 8 to 15 foot putts from above the hole. So when you have those on a day, you leave yourself 18 times above the hole, well, you're going to do well to shoot 68. You get some days where 12 of those shots finish below the hole. That's the days you're going to see him probably shoot 64, 63, 62. So just doing this drill, obviously we can see here she's pretty much on pace to be at 0 strokes gained right now. She's only missed 3 out of her first 11 putts. Okay, so it's a really high performance number right now, what you're achieving. And again, doing this 4 to 8 and 12 to 15 is really going to give you a very good average when you do it 10, 20, 30 times with the same player and doing it on similar sloping putts. The one thing that can be a little bit misleading is doing this on a flat hole where there's no break around it. And then the next time you go and you do it on a 3% slope and you make 7 out of 20 and you're like, oh, my putting's terrible. No, it's not. You just did it on a way more difficult hole location than you did the last one on. So that's one really key drill that we'll do. I'll never forget, I was working actually with Luke List out at San Diego during the Farmers this year. And I remember him doing this drill and he missed the first 3 putts. And he was obviously pretty angry at himself. We were trying to obviously keep a score. And he went the next 17 putts without missing. And we'd actually did it the next day. He missed the first 2 putts, made the next 17, and missed the last 1. So that was on obviously POA down at Torrey, pretty fast sloping putts. He was in a really good space, technically, mentally. He was stroking it lovely, and he actually went ahead and won that week. Obviously, his ball striking was phenomenal, but he made a lot of putts that week in these areas where maybe he hadn't been making them before. But even leading into the tournament, that week we tested Luke, Joaquin, Sebastian Munoz. There's 2 other guys, Mito Pereira, and I can't remember the other one. So I kept the stats every week of how many they made on this drill. And for the entire West Coast, the guy that had the highest score on this on a Tuesday and a Wednesday actually finished of those guys #1 strokes gained for the week. So really getting them into a headspace on a Tuesday and a Wednesday to go ahead and do this drill and make a lot of putts was key to actually them performing in the tournament. We're going to just go ahead and do the last leg of this drill real quick. What have you missed? No, it's all good. I'm really enjoying watching this. This is pretty terrific. Thank you so much.
Steven, one thing I wanted to bring up that I think is really, really key, and I see him all the time. Every player that he coaches, which are all great players, they all look different. Like their anatomy looks different. They hold the putter differently. He's got a guy swinging a long putter. He's got a cross-hander. He had a split gripper for a while. He's got a saw, a claw. He's got Shane Lowry. That looks like he might have been with Blackburn and I last night. And then he's just purely holing everything. So anyways, will you speak about that a little bit? I think that's a big thing for us because we get so many people that look different and they are different, and then we're like, we want them to have a stroke and to look like V, but that's not completely possible. You know, when you see her swings as beautiful as her stroke is. So not everybody is able to do that. And how do you do that, and what are you looking for?
I'm glad you brought that up, Jamie, because that is something I think a lot of people overlook, especially when maybe they watch me teaching on the putting green or in the lab. They're like, oh, he's using all this technology. But like Jamie said, no 2 players fit the same profile. If you look at Joaquin Niemann, he stands pretty much about as perfect posture as you can get, conventional grip. You look at someone like his friend, Mito Pereira. Mito's standing there with a claw grip, a lot more forward bend in the spine at setup. Aaron Wise, I'll give you 2 examples. Aaron Wise is a really good case study. He was with the short putter, came to me the week after the Waste Management. He set the record for most strokes gains lost in a PGA Tour event. He 5-putted twice, 4-putted 4 times in the first 2 days and made the cut. And the week after, started working with him. He struggled a little bit through the season. He'd have some good weeks, some bad weeks, and obviously it was there was some mental issues going on, some yips. So the week before he went to the playoffs, I was watching old highlights and I saw his first college event. He had won at Oregon. He won with a broom handle. So I was like, Aaron, why don't you bring that broom handle over to Medalist? And he's like, I said, do you still have one? He goes, yeah, I've still got the putter that I won with. So he brought it over, switched him into it, putted great. I think he gained about 15 strokes in the playoffs that year, and just finished top 70 in strokes gained this year. So that was something that we were never really going to be able to change with a short putter. Shane Lowry, on the other hand, who you mentioned, Shane was very much locked into a cross-handed grip, quite robotic. And I think if you all watch Shane's golf game, it's pretty much anything but that. He's very handsy, he's very natural. Sometimes I look at where his club face is at the top of the backswing and I think, well, where's this ball going? And he hits from the same position up here. He hits low stingers and high draws and high fades just because his hands are so great. The first day we worked at the Bears Club, we went over to the chipping green and I said, look, Shane, I didn't really know him growing up. I said, can you please just hit me some chip shots? So he goes over. I says, you're renowned for your short game. What is that like? So he goes over and he hits some chip shots. And instead of setting up in this very like bent over cross-handed setup, he's kind of like walks into it completely differently, opens his stance up, sort of gets in there really slowly, soft, beautiful soft hands, takes the club back and just drops it on the ball. I was like, have you ever tried putting this way? He's like, no, I'm a terrible putter. I need to go cross-handed. I need control over the club face. I was like, okay. So we did this drill, and he sets up cross-handed, all bent over the ball, and he literally just walks away from the golf balls. He's like, something's wrong there. And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, because none of those balls look straight. I said, okay. So we tried for about 10 minutes, setting them up in different positions, cross-handed, the whole deal. Nothing looked good. No neck tilts, no eye positions, nothing. So I said, okay, give me your putter. I said, go in there with your wedge. Set up with your wedge as if you're going to chip it, and set up down the line. I won't repeat the words that came out of his mouth, but the balls look straight. Pretty much the most technical thing we've ever worked on was setting him up in a position where he chips from to hit putts from. That was his strength, and yet he goes a little bit closer to the hole, changes club, and it was his biggest weakness. Didn't make any sense. So really understanding that everyone is different. Everyone sees everything differently. Everyone basically has different feels. And, you know, a guy who's become a very good friend of mine, and I've been able to sit and have a lot of coffees with him, is Brad Faxon. And Brad had talked to me a lot about Shane before I worked with him, and he's like, how he walks into his chip shots, the cadence of how he walks in there, matching that up with actually how he hits a chip shot versus how he hits a putt. So a lot of the time you'll see the cadence of how Shane now walks into a putt really match up the softness, the relaxedness, almost the carefree attitude that he walks into a chip with. You can put him behind a tree off a sandy lie and he like walks in there completely normal, like he's going to hit it to 4 feet. But before that, he was walking into a putt that was 4 feet long thinking, I really, really hope this hits the hole. So kind of a little bit like Jamie mentioned, different body types, different personalities, different visuals are all going to change from player to player to player. Does that make sense? Massive round of applause here. That was fantastic. Very good. Okay, so that's basically PGA Tour strokes gain standard. There we go. Yes. Sure.
Folks, at this time, we're going to back in.
Yeah. Well, do you want to do one more? Can we do it 5 minutes?
It's up to you. You're the boss.
Do we have 5 minutes?
You have as much time as you
All
want.
right, 5 minutes, and then we'll finish on this one, okay?
Perfect.
Right, one ball. Here you go. Okay, one speed drill real quick, and then we'll go inside. I'll get you out of the sun. We've got a 30, a 40, a 50, a 60, and a 70-foot tee laid out, and we're going to putt to the hole in the middle down here. Basically, this is just a very simple pace drill. We're doing this down the green today, and we're going to do it up the green on normal days as well. So you can go ahead and get started. I'll talk them through it as you're doing it. The idea of the drill is to hit the 5 putts from those 5 tee positions to the hole, and you've got to get inside of 18 feet total distance to the hole. If we can get inside of 18 feet, that's basically for this length of a putt, that's the strokes gained average distance to the hole for approach putt. So that's about 2.5 feet. It's really good. 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70 feet. So you're going to do the drill 2 different ways. You can do it where you just measure the distance of the balls to the hole once you've hit all the putts. You can also do it where there's a little bit of a tougher parameter on it, where you have to 2-putt every putt. So if you hit, let's say 4 putts to 1 foot, and then you hit the last putt to 12 feet, you got to make the 12-footer to finish the drill. But for this purpose, we're just going to do the drill and count up how many feet of putts do we have left at the end. The total is 18. My tour players, I make them do it to 10 feet because they're hitting the same putt on the same line, and I want to always make practice tougher than competition. Whoa, turn my back. Jamie's putting the ball down. All right, okay. So we've gone through hitting a straight putt, doing a little bit of technique, seeing straight. Go on. Really good putt. Excellent. We've then done a short putting drill where now we know, okay, we've got 5 putts out of 20 that we missed. We have to try and get 16 next time. Again, we do that 12 to 15 as well. And now, finally, we're doing a speed drill. And this is really good, actually. Wow. Give her a round of applause. We didn't even practice this, so this is phenomenal. Really good. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We're going to go inside onto the moving green. I hope that you got something out of this. Like I said, this is completely no technology involved. We're going to change it up a little bit, look at some technology inside, and I think we're at lunch after that, is it? Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so welcome inside out of the sun. I am incredibly excited to be able to showcase this product in front of me here today. Like I said earlier, I am based in an indoor studio in Jupiter in Florida, and there's a couple of things that have been fairly key to a lot of the training that I've been able to do with players in an indoor setting, and also for a lot of the remote coaching that I do with players. Like I said, rather than just training on straight putts, being able to actually hit different and breaking putts. Now, real quick, there's a couple of things that I just want to share with you statistically. This camera above me, again from Quintic, we've been measuring a lot of players recently, and the average club face at impact for a tour pro is about 0.4 degrees from their intended start line at impact on a straight putt. However, when we measure breaking putts, the player's club face is on average 1.8 degrees from their intended start line. So if you were listening a little bit earlier, I mentioned I'd have players come in, hit straight putts, they'd go, and they wouldn't have a great putting week. And obviously, before I had the ability to work on a movable platform, the only thing I could do was hit straight putts indoor in a studio. All the technology in the world measuring, but wasn't really getting to the bottom of the problems. The big tilt from WellPutt basically has been able to completely revolutionize how we train indoors. Also, how I'm able to train with clients remotely in different states and different countries. So we're able to actually go ahead and create training programs on the platform, just like we did outside, having a results-based baseline that every player has to achieve or try and beat that number the next time they do their training drill. I'm also going to want my players to send me their updates. Living in Florida, I've got a student in Guadalajara, Dallas, Austin, Dublin, Alabama, that all have access to a movable platform. So we're able to actually get them to hit from the same spot, tilted 2% or 3%. And the cool thing about this is we're actually, we know exactly what the slope is. We're not going out on a green and we're like, oh, that's roughly a 2%. We know we're going to set this to 2%, and every time we do the drill, we're doing the drill on a 2%. If we see there's a deficiency on left to righters, we're going to tilt it left to right, and we're going to practice that. The other cool feature, not only is it able to move, but because we have a projector on it, a lot of the drills that we did outside, especially like seeing the straight line, we're able to verify how we see straight on this putt as well as being able to hit putts on a breaking putt, but also how do we see a breaking putt. And with the projector system on the big tilt, it combines all the best training methods together in an indoor facility in a fairly small space. I know obviously here at the country club we have a lot of space. Jamie's done an amazing job, but to be able to really have a top-class putting indoor facility in a very small space, I mean, this is 14 feet, 13 feet. 13 feet is long and 6.5 feet wide, I believe. Yeah. So if you want to go ahead and turn on the projection. So I've got a little list of things that I want to just work through here. Whenever the projector comes on. The one thing I would say from a ball roll standpoint, Paul Hurrian, when he's been testing surfaces, was one of the first things I did when I interned with him. And the surface that's on the big tilt, this one runs at about an 11 on the stimp. I think am I allowed to say there's a one at 14? There's a surface that goes a little bit faster, 13, 14? Okay. So we can make it really fast, and there's a slower one. Okay. So you can really even dial in what type or what speed of green you want to putt on. The projection system's really cool. It changes for each stimp. So if we change from an 11 to a 9 carpet, the projection can change and tell us, okay, this is how much break we're playing on a stimp 9, a stimp 11, a stimp 13, whatever. For anybody standing fairly close to the green right now, you can see the projection on it. And this kind of encompasses pretty much my favorite two things together. We've actually got a measurement in I think this is inches, is it? Yes. So we've got a measurement ruler here with two little dots on it where we can dial in feet position, and that can move closer or further away from the ball as is necessary. So the stuff that we did out on the green, being able to find that optimal straight putt, being able to see straight, we're actually able to take those numbers through the projector and actually project them onto the green. You cannot believe how much work that saves me, rather than getting down on my hands and my knees and putting coins on the green and trying to actually measure every time. Once we know the numbers, we program it in, put it down, and the player knows exactly where to stand, how far from the ball, how wide their stance needs to be, being able to see a straight putt. So that's a really, really cool part of the software. The second part is the little well stroke that you saw on the green, the little mat that we were on at the start, the arc for the putter to move back and forward. We've got that set up here at the back of the ball with the club face position during that arc. So again, being able to bring what we did outside on the green inside, and for me, for a measuring point of view, I love being able to do things in a controlled environment. Okay, if we're going to work on technique and start working on club biomechanics, I mean, basically what we're, club dynamics and body biomechanics, we're going to start to do it in a controlled environment and then try and replicate it outside. So we've got a full-on arc here for a backswing and a through swing now, and we've changed it from a 12 degree to a 15 degree, and that'll go up to 24 degrees. So anybody that's beside the green, you can really start to see that curve start to change. So once we know player's baseline, okay, you're on a 17 or a 16 degree arc, you're 8 inches from the ball, you're 4 inches from your left foot, you're 7 inches from your right foot, you program it in, and we know that if we go to any of these holes, left to right, right to left, we can change the hole, and this is going to set up our alignment perfectly to that hole every time. So it's a really, really cool part of the software. We don't have to move the position we hit the ball from. We're just going to move the player around accordingly, and we've got the 8 holes that we're going to putt to. So we're not just putting straight putts down the green each time. On a 2% slope, is this what Yeah, we're on 2%. Okay, my aim point's not too far off then. So on a 2% slope, we've then got 3 different lines that we're going to make the putt on. We've got the bottom line being an aggressive line, the high line being the sort of drop speed dead putt line, and then we've got the middle where would kind of be your perfect speed make line. Obviously, whenever you know what kind of player you're dealing with, then we're kind of going to know, okay, what line are we going on? We're now moving away from the hole actually to just a projection hole in the middle. And if you leave that just here for a second, this is probably one of the most underrated practices there is on a putting green. I can't tell you how often I see players putt to a hole, have the wrong capture speed of the ball, hits the hole and goes in. And they think, oh, that was a great putt. It's going 7-8 feet past the hole. So a lot of the stuff you'll see out on the green that I've just left over is our putting discs. All right. So anyway, the fake hole, I love putting to it, and I pulled one out of the bag there, and it's a painful memory that I still owe Jamie several Bulmers because it's a fake 2020 Ryder Cup disc from Whistling Straits. All right, well, Jamie, I'm on the losing team, all right? Just enough's enough. Don't kick me when I'm down, all right? So practicing to a fake hole, really dialing in the capturing speed, and obviously we can see here where we want to finish the ball on the through line. I really love this part of the software. Going back to the high line and the aggressive line, if we can turn those back on. Okay, can we go back to a hole real quick, just if possible? Yes. The software is so cool. It's on an iPad, and as you can see, it's really easy to use, super quick. It moves around basically at the flip of a button. Here we go. Augusta National this year, Shane finished 3rd, and all we practiced was this drill leading up to the tournament. No technique. We'd work at Bears Club every day, and we'd get the fastest part of the putting green with the most slope, and I'd make him put out a tee or a ball marker on the lowest line he could hit a putt and still get that ball to go in the hole. Make him put another ball marker out on the highest possible line to roll the putt over and make it go in the hole. And then what we did, we'd look how far apart are those ball markers. They could be 9 inches, 12 inches, 15 inches apart. They could be 3 feet apart depending on the length of the putt. But I remember we were hitting 7, 8 footers, and he said to me, he's like, you know, if your gate was that big every time, you'd never really worry about making a putt. You'd never miss it. His worst performances on the practice putting green is usually when I put out like a tiny little gate that's 1 ball wide. So we started putting out these gates that were huge. Find the highest line, drip it in. Find the lowest line, ram it in. You now have the freedom to pick any line between that and roll your putt in on that speed. So, again, as much as we're using technology, we're still trying to remain relative to the art of putting. We're still trying to coincide with the feel of how high do I need to look and how fast do I need to hit this putt. Because the first thing I ask a student when they come to me, doesn't matter if it's a CEO or a tour player, always ask them, why do you miss putts? And I haven't had one player who's given me an accurate answer yet. So then I asked them, okay, well, if you hit 3 drives in the left rough, would you be able to tell me why you hit it left? Yeah, sure. Well, you know, I tend to get this way and that way, and it goes left. So when that happens, I fix it this way. So whenever they come in, the first analysis is, okay, why do you miss putts? Don't know. When they leave that first lesson, my first goal with any player is understanding, why do I miss putts? If we understand why, we can fix it. But I hate guys going over to the side of the putting green and trying to make practice strokes because they've missed a putt. Did I misstrike it? Did I misread it? Did I pick the wrong speed? Did I misaim it? They're never really processing that correctly. When you're practicing on this, and we're even able to put some gates on this, you can see here we've got the optimal line. We've got gates all down along it. And then, if you've got more of the Shane Lowry type, we can widen the gates. And if you've got more of the Joaquin Neiman, we can make them a much narrower. We're basically being able to give the player a real answer, why did I miss the putt? If I hit this ball and it goes through these gates, down this line, and doesn't go in, well, I've definitely hit the wrong speed. If I hit it and it misses the gate, okay, well, or I've hit the gate, okay, club face was off. Okay, now we can start to dial it back. Where was my aim point? Where was my read? Was that correct? Because here, if you want to put the aim point out for this, we're able to see now where we should be aiming. Okay, how close to that line were you aiming? Well, that's exactly where I was aiming. Now we have a club face problem. Vast majority of the time, it's not a club face problem. It's usually one of the other ones where, I mean, if you're working with the top class tour player, they're going to understand if they've missed the sweet spot of the putter. But it's usually a read and a speed. So again, coming back to a little bit what I talked about earlier with, I'm very much seen as a highly technical coach. It ends up always coming back to this. It always ends up coming back to the player understanding, why did I miss? I mean, even when Fee was out there and she started hitting the left gate, I mean, there's obviously a couple of hundred people watching her putt, and we're not going to start breaking down her club movement, but it's a very simple case of she was aiming right and pulling it on line. She's now aiming beautifully, so we need to figure out, okay, is that putter going to still be the right putter for her? And is her perception of where the putter face is still going to be the right perception for her to get the ball started on line? You're then also going to take into account, am I better having a player that aims 1.5 degrees right and pulls it 1.5 degrees on every single putt? Or am I going to go down the route of changing somebody who has what's considered poor aim, but it's the same every time? So these trade-offs, you always got to have, and I think if you're not measuring, then you're always at a guessing game. And when I talk about measuring, it can be something as simple as that drill, where if her performance dips after we change her aim, and we record it before and after, we have a baseline. So I'm not going to go and mess around with her alignment unless she says, well, you know what, I really struggle with that on right to lefters, for example. Okay, well then we can look at that part of it. So this gives me indoors in the studio the best chance to be able to measure and work on what is, I would consider, a more realistic putt. Remember, average player has 0.4 club face position on a straight putt on the PGA Tour. The same player's average club face position is 4 times worse on a breaking putt. That's a lot of misreading and pulling it online or pushing it online, because they're great putters. So if you're actually training your read and your speed a lot more,
you're going to get better performances. You're going to get better results. What was the next one you wanted there? Just real quick. So we had the fake hole. We've got an aim point that we can change based on speed. We've got a fake cup that we can putt to so that we're not missing the capture speed of the ball. And then we've got an error in green reading and an error in speed. So can we bring up the speed one first? And this is one that if you're close to the green, I actually saw this for the first time, this part of the software last night. It kind of blew my mind. So we've got a putt that is 7 feet 1 inch. We've got a perfect aim point and a perfect speed. 5% faster, hits the right edge, but it's going pretty fast at the hole. 10% slower doesn't get there. 10% faster, we're now set a club length coming back. So we're able to get players to hit putts, see where their putt finishes, and then give them a baseline of, okay, that's what 5% speed loss or speed gain looks like. 10%. And I mean, from 10% on a 7-footer, we're almost a 3.5-foot difference in rollout distance. Yes? How many, sorry? The perfect speed line is a foot, 12 inches. Yeah. So I think that's pretty powerful for a training tool for somebody that, especially when you see the person come in with 0.4 club face on a SAM or a Quintic, and you're like, well, I mean, how am I going to make this better? And then their speed starts to vary by a little bit. You show them, well, that's your chances of making the putt, even with a perfect read and still a perfect start line, which we know the best players in the world start line on breaking putts aren't as perfect as on a straight putt. So now if we go to the read, so that's obviously the difference in the speed of the ball. We have the same putt again. I mean, this is only 7 feet. So tour players are 60% from this distance. So we're playing, we should have perfect aim point. Okay. We're on read yet. Okay, so start up again. Yeah, it's going again. So it's our aim line error. So we've got our perfect aim. Ball goes through the hole, finishes 12 inches past. If our aim is off by 25%, we're missing the edge of the hole. Again, this is a 7-footer. It's not a long putt. So when I'm standing here and I've got a 2%er and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, if I'm using aim point, calibrating elbow bends, I get slightly off on an elbow bend, there's no chance I'm going to make this putt. I'm only going to make this putt through error. So really we're able to hold the student accountable to absolutely everything on an indoor putting green that is realistic like being outdoors. Training this putt, straight putt into that hole, best players in the world. I mean, you can go down as far as 150th in strokes gained putting. They're still really good. They're still going to make every putt. But you start tilting this, that's when you're going to see the same player hitting the same putt with a huge difference in results. So again, just powerful images that you're able to put onto the green and show a player. I mean, for a junior golfer, being able to understand this and not missing the putt and walking off to the side of the green and thinking, oh no, my stroke's so bad, I don't know what to do anymore. There's no grain even here, okay? There's no wind. It's not, this is a planar surface. We're not uphill or downhill. And this starts to show up deficiencies of how difficult it is. So again, as much technology as I use and measure, it all comes back to being able to match up that line and the speed, but putting the player in the right position and the right setup and the right frame of mind to be able to achieve that. You got one more? Is that it? Okay. I was going to open it up to questions, but I already got one.
Is there a specific projection or practice that you tend towards with both your tour players and with like your average club golfer? Are there like specific settings, specific drills that you find yourself doing more than others?
I think for sure the ones I've done today are probably the ones that I tend to go towards most. Without being too cliche, it's very individual. Very individual. Each player is going to get a different set of drills, slightly different homework. And through the year, what I work on with a player will change a little bit from West Coast to East Coast and bent, Bermuda, all that sort of stuff. So again, without sounding cliche, it will change, but these ones are certainly my go-to drills.
Can you walk us through actually measuring golf ball stance, club face, how you actually measure somebody?
So whenever we get the straight putt, straight line set up, I'm actually going to get the player to set up down that line without a putter where they can see straight. Once they're in that setup position, I'm actually going to use alignment rods, put one along their feet line, and put one at 90 degrees from the center of the ball to the alignment rod that's by their toes. Sharpie it, 2 Sharpie lines on each foot, and then actually I will measure that with a ruler myself, and I keep that data. The player keeps the alignment sticks, and then 1 week later I'll give them fresh ones because they've lost the other ones. That's why I keep that's why I keep how many inches it is myself.
You talked a little bit about mindset. You talked about Luke winning the Tory, and you had a kind of notorious bad putting performance at a different tournament. What's the difference between the two?
I think there's a mindset on types of grass. You know, I definitely have a couple of players that have avoided playing the West Coast for a long time because they don't want to play on POA. Their stats back it up because the US Open always played on POA, so they don't tend to putt well there. Luke, Sunday at Torrey Pines, I wasn't there, but Jamie was on the range with him before it and came off the golf course, hold a nice putt on 18, and he was hitting balls into the setting sun over the West Coast, looking at the Pacific Ocean, goes back out. But I think it's fair to say that week and the weeks leading up to it from December, he had found something that he could understand and really trust in his stroke as far as how the club face rotates. And specifically today, I've tried to stay away from anything talking about, you know, any different types of torques or displacements or any of that stuff. But we worked a lot on that in December. The week before at Amex, he kind of got it rolling a little bit, and at Torrey he really understood it and got comfortable with the movement. And it's somewhere he's really comfortable. He spent a lot of time on the West Coast, and he's comfortable on POA. So I think matching those things up kind of click, and you get someone that, you know, like Shane, who goes back and putts great at Wentworth a few weeks ago on familiar greens. He's even relaxed in the middle of the fairway because he knows he can't short side himself on the European Tour, if that makes sense. Anything else? Yes?
Just a question on a simple gate drill. Have you ever had a situation where a student who you might consider to be a very good putter, when you set up just a basic ball gate drill, when you put them there, all of a sudden everything changes because they're so worried about missing those tees, and then they tighten up. And then one step further, do you think that might be better on something like the well putt mat where they're not physically hitting the tees, but just hitting images of them?
So your first point, yes. I have definitely seen a lot of players tighten up with a gate, start going from hitting beautiful putts, hit the right side of the gate, then they hit the left side of the gate, and they can't get one through all of a sudden, okay? Gate drills I'll only use with certain players. And again, it's one of the advantages of working more long-term with a student. You get to know, all right, well, that player, there's no gates involved in their warm-up or their practice. Player B, this might be the only thing that they do. Second part, well putt, yes. So having the gates visually on a projection where you hit it, but it doesn't ricochet the ball offline or something, definitely is going to free them up for sure. Yeah, 100%.
The putting green, how far were the tees away from each other?
So the speed drill was 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 feet. And the swirl drill was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Were they 2 feet apart?
Oh, so I do it just in they space them apart so that whenever you set up the next wing, they're not in the way. I've messed it up loads of times, but you get good at it eventually.
If you coach a college team, a high school team, a junior team, those two drills are, I would say, the best drills that there are that you can do homogenously for your whole team. You know, a lot of the stuff that he's doing is individual and tailor-made. The way that he would speak to Mita is totally different half of what he's saying to Joaquin. And I listen to him go about it, but those two drills you almost can't mess it up. We got one more question.
What was the strokes gain 0 on a 12 through 15 club?
So 12 through 15, you do 16 putts, and it is 6 out of 16. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't tell you how honored I am, as I said, a young guy from Donegal on the west coast of Ireland, to be standing in front of the best coaches in California. I'm truly honored to be here. I can't thank you all enough for taking the time out to listen to me. I hope you got something out of it, and enjoy the rest of the summit. Jamie, thank you so much once again.
I think it goes without saying the honor is truly ours, and Stephen had to go through a lot to get here, so thank you so very much. Raise your hand if you want a well putt. This thing's pretty unbelievable. So we're going to head out to lunch. We've got I know, I wish. You guys got one in the trunk? You got a well putt we can raffle off? Yeah. All right. So we'll head out to lunch. We've got about an hour. We'll do a special presentation out there as well. So come on out and enjoy some good VCC hospitality. Thank you.